My name is Ryan Mitchell, and at 32, I thought I had everything figured out. A successful software engineer with a beautiful 5-bedroom house in a quiet suburb. When my mom lost her job and my brother got divorced, I opened my doors. I never imagined those simple acts of kindness would cost me $9,300 monthly, or that my own family would tell me, "If you don't like living with family, you can leave." Before I dive into this wild journey, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, hit that like button, and subscribe, because you'll want to see how one bank transfer changed everything. Looking back, I can pinpoint exactly when everything started. It was March 2023. And I had just hit a major milestone in my life. After grinding for 10 years at a tech company, climbing from junior developer to senior software architect, I finally had enough saved for a substantial down payment on my dream home. The housing market was competitive, but I managed to secure a beautiful 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom house in Oak Ridge Estates, a peaceful suburb about 20 miles from downtown. The property cost me $875,000, and with my salary of $185,000 a year, the mortgage payments were manageable. I remember the day I got the keys, that feeling of accomplishment walking through those empty rooms, planning where my furniture would go, which room would become my home office, which would be the guest bedroom. The house had everything I wanted: a spacious kitchen with granite countertops, hardwood floors throughout the main level, a finished basement perfect for a home theater, and a backyard with enough space for a future deck and garden. I even had a hot tub installed on the back patio. Something I dreamed about since I was a kid. For the first 2 months, I lived alone and loved it. My house became my sanctuary after long days of coding and meetings. I'd established a comfortable routine and even started hosting small gatherings with friends from work. Life was good. Then came the phone call that would change everything. It was a Sunday evening when my phone rang. I recognized my mother's number and answered with my usual cheerfulness. Instead of her typical greeting, I heard sobbing. "Mom? What's wrong?" I asked, immediately concerned. Between tears, she explained that the marketing firm where she'd worked for 15 years was downsizing. She'd been laid off without warning, and at 58. She was terrified about finding new employment. Worse yet, without income, she couldn't make her rent payments and was facing eviction within 30 days. "I don't know what I'm going to do, Ryan," she cried. "I've applied for unemployment, but it's not enough to cover my rent and bills." My heart sank. My mother had raised me single-handedly after my father passed away when I was 12. She'd worked multiple jobs to ensure I could go to college. How could I not help her when she needed me? As if the universe was testing me, the very next day, my brother Jason called with his own crisis. His wife had filed for divorce, demanding he move out immediately. With 2 kids, my niece Emma, 8, and nephew Tyler, 6, and nowhere to go, he sounded desperate. Jason worked as a high school teacher but was in the middle of summer break with reduced income. The timing couldn't have been worse. The solution seemed obvious to me. I had this big house with plenty of space, and my family needed help. It would be temporary, just until my mom found a new job and Jason figured out his divorce situation. 2 or 3 months tops. I could handle that. "Mom, Jason," I said during our 3-way call that evening, "I want you both to move in with me. There's plenty of room, and it'll give you time to get back on your feet." Their gratitude was overwhelming. My mother cried tears of relief, and Jason kept thanking me, promising they wouldn't be a burden. They both assured me they'd contribute to expenses once they stabilized their situations and would help with household chores in the meantime. "This is just temporary," my mom assured me. "I'll find a job soon, and then I'll be out of your hair." "Same here," Jason added. "Once the divorce is finalized and I get a new place, we'll be gone. 3 months max, I promise." I felt good about my decision. This was what family was for, supporting each other through tough times. I had the means to help, and I couldn't imagine turning my back on them. Besides, Having some company in that big house might be nice. The following weekend, I helped them move in. Mom took the guest bedroom on the main floor, while I converted my home office into a bedroom for Jason and set up the spare bedroom upstairs for the kids. I moved my work setup to a corner of my bedroom, which wasn't ideal but seemed manageable for a short period. That first weekend went surprisingly well. We ordered pizza, watched movies with the kids, and stayed up late catching up. Mom cooked her famous lasagna on Sunday, and it felt like a warm family gathering. I went to bed Sunday night feeling proud of myself for being able to help my family when they needed it most. This is going to work out just fine, I thought as I drifted off to sleep. A few months of adjustment, and then things will go back to normal. Little did I know how wrong I was. The first month with my family living under my roof wasn't terrible, but small irritations began to surface almost immediately. I had established a productive work-from-home routine before they arrived, up at 6 a.m., workout in the home gym I'd set up in the basement. Then at my desk by 8 a.m. for a solid day of coding and meetings. By 6 p.m., I'd wrap up, make a simple dinner, and spend evenings relaxing or pursuing personal projects. This carefully crafted routine quickly disintegrated. The first issue arose during my morning meetings. Despite explaining that I needed quiet during video calls, Emma and Tyler would invariably burst into my makeshift bedroom office, often during critical discussions with clients or my boss. "Uncle Ryan! Can we use your iPad? Uncle Ryan! Tyler took my doll! Uncle Ryan! We're hungry!" Each interruption earned apologetic glances from Jason, but he made little effort to establish boundaries with his children. When I suggested he keep them occupied during my work hours, he'd shrug and say, "They're just kids, Ryan. They're going through a lot with the divorce." My mother, meanwhile, began a subtle campaign of criticism about my lifestyle choices. It started with comments about my eating habits. "You're really having protein shakes for breakfast again? No wonder you're so skinny. You need real food," she'd say, despite my explanation about my fitness goals. Then came critiques about my work hours. "You're still working? It's almost 7 p.m. This isn't healthy, Ryan. You need better work-life balance." I bit my tongue, reminding myself this was temporary. But as days turned into weeks, these small frustrations multiplied. The first major shock came when I received the utility bills at the end of month 1. My electricity bill had doubled from $150 to $300. Water had jumped from $75 to $180. Internet usage had spiked so much that I'd exceeded my data cap and incurred overage charges. I discovered my brother and the kids were streaming on multiple devices simultaneously throughout the day, while my mother ran the dishwasher half empty and did laundry daily, often with tiny loads. Grocery expenses proved even more alarming. Before my family moved in, I spent about $400 monthly on groceries for myself. Now, I was spending over $1,200, partly because my mother insisted on buying premium brands and organic everything for the children's health. When I suggested more budget-friendly options, she looked hurt. "I thought you were doing well financially, Ryan. Don't you want your niece and nephew to eat healthy food?" Then there was Jason. Every time we went shopping, he'd conveniently forget his wallet. When we ordered takeout, he never offered to pay. The few times I mentioned splitting costs, he'd launch into a detailed explanation of his financial struggles with the divorce, child support negotiations, and reduced summer income. "I'll pay you back once the school year starts," became his mantra, though I was beginning to doubt his sincerity. By the 6-week mark, anxiety about my finances was keeping me up at night. My generous salary suddenly felt insufficient. I'd been saving aggressively for years, putting away about $3,000 monthly toward early retirement and future investments. Now those savings were stagnating as I covered the ballooning household expenses. Still, I hesitated to confront my family directly. These were the people who had supported me throughout my life. My mother had sacrificed so much for my education, and Jason had always been there for me during college when I struggled with stress and uncertainty. Didn't I owe them patience and generosity now? Nevertheless, I decided to establish some basic house rules. One Sunday evening, I called a family meeting in the living room after the kids were in bed. I think we need to set some guidelines to make this arrangement work better for everyone, I began, trying to sound casual rather than confrontational. I suggested reasonable boundaries. Quiet hours during my meetings, a schedule for kitchen and laundry use, limits on streaming during work hours, and a rough outline for sharing grocery expenses once their financial situations improved. The response was not what I expected. "Oh, Ryan," my mother sighed with obvious disappointment. "After all I've done for you growing up, all the nights I've worked 2 jobs to put food on our table, you're nickel-and-diming me over some groceries and laundry?" Jason nodded in agreement. "Man, I'm dealing with Chelsea taking half of everything I own in this divorce, plus trying to keep the kids from being emotionally scarred for life. The last thing I need is more rules and financial pressure." Their reactions left me speechless. Somehow, I'd been transformed from the family savior into the villain, all for suggesting basic consideration and eventual financial contribution. "Sorry," I mumbled, retreating to my room. "I just thought some structure might help." That night, lying in bed, I realized with growing unease that my family's definition of temporary might differ significantly from mine. When I'd offered my home, I'd imagined a clear timeline with progress toward independence. Now, 2 months in, neither my mother nor Jason mentioned job hunting or apartment searches with any regularity. The final warning sign from this early period came when I discovered my expensive noise-canceling headphones, a $350 pair I use for work, broken on the living room floor. Tyler had apparently used them as a superhero prop, stretching them until the band snapped. When I showed them to Jason, visibly upset, his response was telling. "They're just headphones, Ryan. Things can be replaced. Family is what matters." He made no offer to replace them or discipline Tyler about respecting others' property. The message was clear: my possessions, like my space and finances, were now communal resources. And questioning this arrangement made me selfish. As the 3rd month began, I found myself increasingly retreating to my bedroom, the last remaining private space in what used to be my sanctuary. The growing knot in my stomach told me what my mind wasn't ready to admit. This situation was rapidly becoming unsustainable. By the 3-month mark, what I had initially envisioned as a temporary living arrangement had settled into an uncomfortable permanent feeling. Despite my gentle inquiries, neither my mother nor Jason seemed to be making genuine efforts toward independence. My mother had gone on exactly 2 job interviews, both of which she declared beneath her qualifications. Meanwhile, Jason's summer break was ending, but his talk of finding his own place had mysteriously evaporated. "The rental market is insane right now," he'd explain. "Plus, with the divorce proceedings dragging on, I can't make any major financial commitments." I tried to be understanding, but my patience was wearing dangerously thin. The constant noise and lack of privacy had begun affecting my work performance. My productivity had dropped noticeably. And for the first time in my career, I missed a critical deadline. My team lead, Marcus, who had always praised my reliability, sent me a private message expressing concern. "Everything okay, Ryan? This isn't like you. If something's going on, we should talk about it." I was too embarrassed to explain that I couldn't concentrate because my niece and nephew were having screaming matches outside my bedroom door, or that my mother's constant interruptions to ask technology questions had derailed my coding sessions. Instead, I assured him it was a one-time slip and promised to do better. The financial situation had become even more dire. I sat down one evening to calculate exactly what this family support was costing me, and the numbers were staggering. Mortgage $3. $400/month, unchanged. Utilities, now averaging $650 per month, up from $275. Groceries, $1,200 per month, up from $400. Takeouts/restaurants, $800 per month, up from $200. Additional childcare expenses, $500 per month, new. Household supplies, $350 per month, up from $100. Streaming services/entertainment, $200 per month, up from $50. Miscellaneous family expenses, $700 per month, new. Lost income from reduced productivity, $1,500 per month, estimated. Total monthly cost, $9,300. The figure shocked me. Nearly half my monthly income was now going towards supporting my family members who had contributed exactly $0 to household expenses in 3 months. At this rate, my carefully built savings would be depleted within a year. What made it worse was discovering that both my mother and brother had been dishonest about their job hunting efforts. I accidentally overheard my mother on the phone with her friend Linda, laughing about how she was taking a well-deserved break, and in no rush to get back to the grind. Later that week, I found an unopened stack of job applications that Jason had claimed to have submitted weeks ago. The discovery prompted me to initiate another family discussion, this time more directly addressing the financial strain. "I need to talk to you both about household expenses," I began one evening after the kids were asleep. "I've been covering everything for 3 months now, and honestly it's becoming unsustainable." I showed them the breakdown of costs, suggesting that even small contributions would help. Perhaps my mother could cover groceries, or Jason could handle the utilities. The reaction was immediate and hostile. "I can't believe how selfish you've become," my mother snapped. "Success has changed you, Ryan. The boy I raised would never put money before family." "Seriously, bro?" Jason added. "You know I'm drowning in legal fees. What do you want me to do, take food out of my kids' mouths to pay your electric bill?" "That's not what I'm saying," I tried to explain. "I'm just asking for some contribution, any contribution, to acknowledge that this is a shared household." "A shared household?" My mother's voice rose. "This is family helping family. When you were in college and needed money for books, did I present you with a spreadsheet of costs? When you needed a place to stay during summer breaks, did I charge you rent?" Every attempt at reasonable discussion was met with emotional manipulation and guilt-tripping. The conversation ended with my mother storming off to her room and Jason giving me a look of profound disappointment before following suit. After that confrontation, the atmosphere in the house became noticeably colder. My mother began making passive-aggressive comments about some people's priorities, while Jason adopted a wounded demeanor, sighing heavily whenever financial topics arose. They formed a united front against me, often whispering together and falling silent when I entered a room. My personal space and privacy, already compromised, deteriorated further. I'd return from rare outings with friends to find my bedroom door open, items moved, or my computer used. When I installed a lock on my bedroom door, my mother acted personally betrayed. "What are you hiding from your own family?" she demanded. "Don't you trust us?" The invasion extended to my personal life. My mother began questioning my friendships, suggesting certain friends were bad influences, encouraging my materialistic tendencies. She'd answer my phone when I was in the shower, interrogate delivery people, and once even cancel the date I had planned, telling the woman who called that I was dealing with some personal issues and couldn't make it. The situation with the children worsened too. Without consistent boundaries from Jason, Emma and Tyler's behavior became increasingly disruptive. They treated my possessions with casual disregard, spilling drinks on my laptop, using my expensive skincare products for potions, and once drawing with permanent markers on my bedroom wall. Jason's response was always the same, a half-hearted apology followed by, "They're just going through a lot right now." The stress began manifesting physically. I developed insomnia. Often lying awake until 3 a.m., my mind racing with financial worries and rehearsing confrontations I was too conflict avoidant to initiate. I started experiencing anxiety attacks during work calls, my heart racing and palms sweating at the prospect of another missed deadline. I lost weight, my clothes hanging loose on my frame as my appetite diminished. 6 months into this arrangement, Marcus called me into a formal meeting. My work performance had declined to the point where it couldn't be ignored. "Ryan, we value you tremendously," he said, his expression concerned. "But in the past few months, your code quality has dropped, you've missed multiple deadlines, and you seem distracted in meetings. What's going on?" I finally broke down and explained my home situation. Marcus was sympathetic but firm. "I understand family obligations, but your career is at risk here. I can give you some flexibility, but I need to see improvement within a month, or we'll have to discuss more serious options." That warning was the catalyst for my realization. This wasn't just about money or inconvenience anymore. My entire life, career, health, relationships, was unraveling because I couldn't establish boundaries with my family. Something had to change, and soon. But every time I gathered the courage to address the situation, my resolve would crumble in the face of my mother's tears or Jason's references to the children's well-being. The guilt was paralyzing. As month 7 bled into month 8, I felt increasingly like a stranger in my own home, a silent ATM machine expected to provide unlimited resources without complaint. The resentment building inside me was reaching dangerous levels, but I still couldn't see a way out that didn't involve betraying my family. Little did I know, the true breaking point was just around the corner. 8 months into our temporary living arrangement, I returned home from a rare Friday night out with colleagues to find my house transformed. Music blasted from my expensive sound system, while at least 20 strangers filled my living room, kitchen, and back patio. Red plastic cups littered every surface, and the distinct smell of marijuana hung in the air despite my strict no-drugs policy. I stood frozen in the entryway, taking in the scene with mounting horror. My carefully selected furniture had been pushed against walls to create a makeshift dance floor. Someone had spilled red wine on my white area rug. A group of teenagers, who couldn't possibly be of legal drinking age, were playing beer pong on my dining table, the handcrafted walnut one I'd saved for months to purchase. I spotted Jason by the backyard door, beer in hand, laughing with a group of men I'd never seen before. My mother was in the kitchen, serving up food on my plates to complete strangers. "What the hell is going on?" I demanded, my voice barely audible over the music. Jason noticed me and grinned, apparently oblivious to my distress. "Ryan! You're home early. Come meet everyone, some old friends from college in town for the weekend." "Turn the music off," I said, struggling to maintain my composure. Now, something in my tone must have registered, because Jason's smile faltered. He moved to the sound system and lowered the volume, though not completely off. "Everyone, this is my brother Ryan," he announced, slinging an arm around my shoulders. "The man with the mansion." A few people raised their cups in acknowledgement. My mother approached, carrying a tray of what appeared to be my premium steaks, the ones I'd been saving for a special occasion. "Honey, you should have told us you were coming home early," she said, as if I were the one who had done something unexpected. "We would have saved you some food." I shrugged Jason's arm off. "Can I speak with both of you? Privately." "Now." I led them to my bedroom, the only room not currently occupied by strangers, and closed the door behind us. "Would either of you like to explain why there's a party in my house that I knew nothing about?" I asked, fighting to keep my voice level. "It's just a small get-together," Jason said defensively. "Tom and the guys were passing through, and I haven't seen them in years." "Small? There are at least 20 people out there. And who are those teenagers? They look underage." "Those are Tom's kids and their friends," my mother interjected. "They're very responsible." That's not the point, I countered. This is my house. You didn't ask permission to host a party. You didn't even tell me it was happening. I tried texting you, Jason claimed, though I had received no such message. Besides, my mother added, we live here too. Are we supposed to clear our every move with you? That comment struck a nerve. Yes, actually. When it involves inviting 20 strangers into my home, consuming my food and alcohol, potentially creating legal liability if those minors are drinking, and definitely violating the noise ordinances in this neighborhood, yes, you absolutely should clear that with me. My mother's expression hardened. You know, Ryan, you've become very controlling. This isn't healthy. Controlling? I repeated incredulously. I've paid for everything for 8 months. I've given up my privacy, my space, my savings, and I'm controlling for expecting basic courtesy? See, there you go again with the money. Jason sighed, exchanging a knowing look with our mother. Always keeping score. I took a deep breath, trying a different approach. Look, it's not about the money. It's about respect. I welcomed you into my home to help during a difficult time. But there have to be boundaries. Boundaries with family? My mother looked genuinely perplexed. What's next? Scheduling appointments to talk to each other? That's not what I mean, I said. I just need some consideration. Some space. Space? My mother repeated, her voice rising. We're your family, Ryan. Act like it. And what does that mean? Being a doormat? Letting you take advantage of me indefinitely? The moment the words left my mouth, I knew I'd crossed the line. My mother's face flushed with anger. Take advantage? After everything I've sacrificed for you? I worked 3 jobs to put you through college. I went without so you could have opportunities. I know that, Mom. And I'm grateful. You have a funny way of showing it. She interrupted. You've changed, Ryan. Success has made you selfish. You care more about your fancy house and your expensive things than your own family. Jason nodded in agreement. Seriously, bro. We're going through hell. And all you can think about is your precious space and your precious money. That's not fair. I protested. I've supported you both completely for 8 months without complaint. Without complaint? My mother laughed bitterly. You've been sulking around this house for months, making us feel like burdens. Acting like you're doing us some huge favor by letting your own mother have a roof over her head. You are doing us a favor, Jason admitted, but family helps family. That's how it works. When I get back on my feet. When, Jason? I interrupted. It's been 8 months. You haven't gone on a single apartment viewing. Mom hasn't applied for a job in weeks. This doesn't feel temporary anymore. A heavy silence filled the room. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice dangerously quiet. If you don't like living with family, you can leave. I stared at her, unable to process what I just heard. Excuse me? You heard me. This arrangement clearly isn't working for you. So maybe you should be the one to find other accommodations. The audacity of the statement left me speechless. My own mother was suggesting I should leave my house, the house I had saved for years to buy, the house where I paid every bill. The house that was solely in my name. This is my house, I finally managed. My name is on the mortgage. I pay the bills. It's a house, my mother dismissed with a wave of her hand. Just a building. We're your blood. If you can't handle sharing your precious space with the people who raised you, then maybe you need to rethink your priorities. I looked at Jason, expecting him to recognize the absurdity of our mother's position, but he was nodding in agreement. Mom's right, he said. You've got options, man. You make good money. You could rent an apartment if you need your space so badly. Meanwhile, my kids need stability. They've already been through enough with the divorce. In that moment, something broke inside me, the final thread of patience, perhaps, or the last remnant of the guilt that had kept me compliant for so long. Everyone needs to be gone by tomorrow morning, I said, my voice unnaturally calm. All the strangers. This party ends now. You can't be serious, Jason protested. Deadly serious. End the party. Or I'm calling the police to report trespassing and underage drinking. I walked out of the bedroom without waiting for their response, straight through the living room full of strangers, and out the front door. I got into my car, the one thing that still felt like mine, and drove to a nearby park, where I parked and finally allowed the emotions to overwhelm me. Anger, betrayal, grief, and exhaustion crashed over me in waves. I had sacrificed everything to help my family, and in return, they had taken my generosity for granted, invaded every aspect of my life, and now had the audacity to suggest I should be the one to leave. As the night deepened around me, I reclined my seat and stared at the ceiling of my car. For the first time in 8 months, despite the discomfort, I felt a strange sense of peace. No one was making demands. No one was guilting me or criticizing me or touching my things without permission. I must have fallen asleep, because when I opened my eyes, the first light of dawn was breaking over the horizon. As I watched the sun rise, something inside me hardened into resolve. The solution to my problem suddenly seemed crystal clear. I pulled out my phone and made a transfer from my emergency savings account to my checking account, a single transaction that would set in motion the end of my family's reign over my home and life. My mother didn't know it yet, but when she had said, "If you don't like living with family, you can leave," she had inadvertently signed her own eviction notice. I spent that Saturday morning in a coffee shop, methodically developing my plan while ignoring the stream of increasingly angry texts from my mother and brother. They ranged from guilt-tripping, "How could you embarrass us in front of our friends?" to concerned trolling, "We're worried about your mental health," to outright threats, "If this is how you're going to act, we need to have a serious conversation about living arrangements." I turned my phone to silent and focused on the task at hand. This wasn't a rash decision born of a single bad night. It was the culmination of 8 months of boundaries crossed and generosity abused. I needed to approach this situation strategically rather than emotionally. My first step was to understand my legal position. I called a friend from college who had become a real estate attorney and explained my situation. "So legally speaking, they're considered tenants even though they don't pay rent," he explained after hearing my story. "In this state, they have established residency by living there for more than 30 days. That means you can't just change the locks, you need to follow formal eviction procedures." "How long would that take?" I asked. "Given they don't have a lease, you need to provide 30 days written notice to terminate their tenancy. If they refuse to leave after that, you'd file an unlawful detainer lawsuit, which could take another 30 to 60 days to resolve. Assuming they contest it, which, from what you've told me, they likely would. The prospect of potentially 3 more months of this untenable living situation, plus the awkwardness and hostility of ongoing legal proceedings against my own family, made my stomach turn. I needed another solution. "What if I no longer owned the house?" I asked. "What do you mean? If I sold the house to a third party who wanted to occupy it themselves?" My friend paused. "Well, that's different. A new owner who intends to occupy the property can usually terminate existing tenancies more quickly, especially informal ones without leases." "But Ryan, are you seriously considering selling your dream home just to get your family out?" I wasn't, not exactly. But the conversation had given me an idea. After hanging up, I made 2 more calls. The first was to my financial advisor, who was alarmed by how much my savings had depleted over the past 8 months. "This is unsustainable," she warned after reviewing my accounts. "At this rate, you'll have completely depleted your emergency fund within 2 months, and then you'll start accumulating debt. Something has to change." I shared my emerging plan with her, and though she was surprised by its boldness, she agreed it made financial sense under the circumstances. "It's unorthodox, but it protects your financial future while providing a clean break. If you're sure this is what you want to do, I can help you structure it properly. My second call was to a property management company that specialized in investment properties. The conversation was detailed and technical, but by the end, I had the final piece of my plan in place. With my strategy mapped out, I opened my laptop and began drafting emails, making spreadsheets, and preparing documents. I worked through lunch, fueled by determination and the strange calm that comes with finally taking decisive action. By mid-afternoon, I had secured an appointment with a notary for Monday morning and had digital documents ready for signing. The large transfer I had initiated from my emergency fund to my checking account would clear by then, exactly enough to pay off the remaining mortgage balance in full. I had purchased my house with a substantial down payment, and with property values in the area having increased, I had accumulated significant equity. Paying off the mortgage would give me complete control over the property and eliminate my largest monthly expense, creating financial breathing room despite the hit to my savings. My plan was unconventional but elegant in its simplicity. I would sell the house to a real estate investment company owned by my college roommate, with a special clause allowing me to lease it back immediately as the sole tenant. The company would serve as a buffer between me and my family, handling the formal eviction process as a business matter rather than a personal one. In essence, I would technically no longer be the homeowner, but I would be the legal tenant with exclusive rights to the property. My family members would become unauthorized occupants whom the new owners could remove with professional detachment. The final piece of the puzzle was securing my most important possessions. While I couldn't remove everything without raising suspicions, I spent Sunday morning, while my family was at church, their only regular outing without me, gathering my essential documents, irreplaceable mementos, and most valuable electronics. I loaded them into my car and drove to a storage unit I had rented the previous day. I also visited my bank to open a new account at a different institution, redirecting my direct deposit for the next pay period. I changed all my passwords, removed my credit cards from shared streaming services, and put a freeze on my credit to prevent any financial retaliation. With each methodical step, I felt a growing sense of empowerment replacing months of helplessness. I was reclaiming control over my life, one strategic move at a time. Sunday evening, I finally returned home. The atmosphere was glacial. My mother and Jason sat in stony silence in the living room as I entered, clearly expecting an apology or explanation for my absence. I offered neither, retreating to my bedroom with a simple, "Good evening." As I closed my door, I heard my mother mutter, "He'll come to his senses eventually. He just needs to cool off." Little did she know that behind my calm exterior, a complete restructuring of our living situation was already in motion. By this time tomorrow, the mortgage would be paid off. By Tuesday, the property would change hands. And by Wednesday, formal notices would arrive that would irrevocably alter our family dynamic. For the first time in months, I slept soundly, undisturbed by anxiety or guilt. The path forward was clear, and while it would undoubtedly lead to conflict, it would also lead to resolution. I was no longer trapped. Monday morning, I left for work earlier than usual, stopping at the notary's office to sign the final documents. By noon, my mortgage was officially paid in full. By end of day, the property sale was processed with unprecedented speed, thanks to my friend's connections and the all-cash nature of the transaction. That night, I returned home and behaved normally, even making small talk with Jason about his day. My mother, interpreting this as a sign that I was getting over our disagreement, seemed triumphant. "I knew you'd come around," she said as we crossed paths in the kitchen. "Family always works things out." I simply nodded, not trusting myself to speak without revealing that her understanding of working things out was about to be dramatically redefined. Tuesday passed in similar fashion, me going through the motions at home while finalizing details with the property management company. I arranged for a locksmith to be on standby and confirmed that the formal notices had been prepared for delivery. As I lay in bed Tuesday night, on the eve of what I'd come to think of as Independence Day, I experienced a moment of doubt. Was I really prepared to take such drastic action against my own family? Was there another way we could resolve this? Then I remembered my mother's words. If you don't like living with family, you can leave. The callous entitlement of that statement, after all I had sacrificed, reinforced my resolve. Sometimes, loving someone means stopping them from taking advantage of you, even when it's painful for both parties. Tomorrow would be difficult, but necessary. And in the long run, perhaps it might even lead to healthier family relationships built on mutual respect rather than exploitation. With that thought, I closed my eyes, ready for whatever the morning would bring. Wednesday morning arrived with an ordinary start. I left for work at my usual time, nodding politely to my mother, who was making coffee in the kitchen. Jason was helping the kids get ready for school, the normal weekday chaos in full swing. Nothing in my demeanor betrayed the fact that today would permanently alter our family dynamic. At precisely 10 a.m., according to the plan I had carefully orchestrated, a courier delivered an official letter to my house addressed to current residents. I had arranged to work from home that afternoon, timing my return to coincide with the fallout I knew would follow. When I pulled into my driveway at 1 p.m., the atmosphere had clearly shifted. My mother stood in the doorway, her face a mask of disbelief and outrage, the open letter clutched in her hand. "What is this?" she demanded as I approached, thrusting the paper toward me. "Some kind of sick joke?" I took the letter and pretended to read it, though I knew exactly what it contained: formal notification that the property had been sold to Westbrook Property Investments, LLC, and that all current occupants without a lease agreement had 14 days to vacate the premises. "It seems the house has been sold," I said calmly, handing the letter back. "That's impossible," she sputtered. "You can't sell a house with a mortgage that fast. And you would have told us." "Actually, there is no mortgage," I replied, maintaining my composure. "I paid it off on Monday." Her eyes widened as the implications began to sink in. "You paid off your mortgage? And then sold the house? Without discussing it with us? Where are we supposed to go?" "That's a fair question," I acknowledged, walking past her into the house. "Let's discuss it with Jason too." In the living room, Jason was pacing, his own copy of the letter in hand. The children were thankfully still at school, spared from witnessing the unfolding drama. "Ryan, what the hell, man?" Jason exploded when he saw me. "We're being evicted?" "By some company I've never heard of. I think we should all sit down," I suggested, taking a seat on the couch. After a moment of tense silence, they both reluctantly sat opposite me. "Yes, the house has been sold," I confirmed. "And yes, Westbrook Property Investments is now requesting that all unauthorized occupants vacate within 14 days. "Unauthorized?" my mother repeated incredulously. "We're your family. You're also residents who have contributed nothing financially for nearly 9 months," I pointed out. "You've made it abundantly clear that you have no intention of finding your own housing, despite your promises that this arrangement would be temporary. So your solution is to sell your house out from under us?" Jason was livid. "Where are my kids supposed to go?" "That's entirely up to you," I replied. "But I have a proposal." I reached into my briefcase and pulled out 2 identical folders, handing one to each of them. Inside was a formal rental agreement from Westbrook Property Investments. "The new owner is willing to rent rooms to you, at market rate. 1 bedroom for Mom at $1,200 monthly, and 2 bedrooms for Jason and the kids at $2,100 monthly. Utilities and other expenses would be split equally among all adult tenants." They stared at the documents in stunned silence. "This is outrageous," my mother finally said. "I can't afford $1. $200 a month. Not without a job, no," I agreed. Which brings me to the second part of my proposal. I explained that they had two options. Either sign the rental agreements and begin paying their fair share, which would require them to find employment immediately, or vacate the property within the timeframe specified. "And where will you be living?" Jason asked suspiciously. "I've signed a lease with Westbrook as well," I explained. "I'll be staying." My mother's eyes narrowed as understanding dawned. "This company, it's not real, is it? This is some kind of trick." "Westbrook Property Investments is very real," I assured her. "It's a legitimate business with all proper licenses and registrations. The sale was legal and binding. What I didn't mention was that the company belonged to my college roommate, with whom I had arranged this solution. The house had indeed been sold, but with a special agreement allowing me to lease it back indefinitely. Essentially, I had created a legal buffer between myself and my family, transferring the uncomfortable role of enforcer to a third party. "I can't believe you would do this to your own mother," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "After everything I've sacrificed for you." For once, the guilt trip didn't work. "Mom, I've sacrificed too. I've spent over $83,000 supporting this household over the past 9 months. I've given up my privacy, my space, my savings, and nearly lost my job due to the constant disruptions. When I asked for basic consideration, you told me I could leave my own house if I didn't like the arrangement." "I didn't mean it literally," she protested. "Maybe not. But it revealed how you really see this situation, that your comfort trumps my boundaries, always. That's not sustainable or healthy for any of us." Jason, who had been quietly reading through the rental agreement, looked up. "These terms are pretty standard, actually," he admitted reluctantly. "But with school starting, I don't have time to find a new place and move the kids within 2 weeks." "I anticipated that," I acknowledged. "If you sign the agreement today, Westbrook is willing to waive the first month's rent to give you time to find employment and stabilize your finances. But after that, payment will be expected in full on time." My mother was shaking her head in disbelief. "I can't believe you're treating us like tenants instead of family." "I tried treating you like family," I replied evenly. "I welcomed you with open arms, supported you completely, and asked only for basic respect in return. You treated me like an ATM and made me feel like a stranger in my own home. That's not fair," Jason protested, though with less conviction than before. "Isn't it?" I challenged. "When was the last time either of you thanked me for anything? When did you ever consider how your actions affected me? When did you make any effort to contribute or at least minimize the burden?" The silence that followed was telling. "Look," I continued, softening my tone slightly, "I don't want to destroy our relationship. I just need boundaries. This arrangement gives us all a fresh start. You take responsibility for yourselves, and I reclaim my space. We can rebuild our family bonds on healthier terms." Jason was the first to show signs of acceptance. "I guess I have been taking advantage," he admitted reluctantly. "I stopped looking for apartments after the first month because it was just easier to stay here. That wasn't fair to you." My mother, however, was not ready to concede. "This is a betrayal," she insisted. "Family doesn't charge family rent. Family doesn't evict family. Family also doesn't take advantage of family," I countered. "You raised me to be responsible and self-sufficient. I'm asking the same of you now." The conversation continued in circles for nearly 2 hours. Jason gradually moved toward acceptance, even acknowledging that having a formal arrangement might actually be better for everyone's relationships in the long run. My mother alternated between tears, anger, and attempts at manipulation, bringing up childhood sacrifices, health concerns I'd never heard mentioned before, and even threatening to tell the extended family I had thrown her out on the street. Through it all, I maintained my position calmly but firmly. By evening, Jason had signed his rental agreement, committing to find work immediately. My mother, still resistant, needed more time. I need to think about this, she said coldly. I may have other options. Of course, I replied. But Westbrook needs your decision by Friday. After that, the 14-day notice stands. That night, the house was quieter than it had been in months. Jason took the children out for dinner, perhaps to discuss their changing circumstances away from the tension. My mother remained in her room, the occasional sound of a phone conversation drifting through the door. I sat alone in my living room, experiencing a strange mixture of relief, guilt, and resolve. The hardest part was done. I had taken back control of my life without completely severing my family relationships, though they were undeniably damaged in the short term. Thursday and Friday brought a noticeable shift in household dynamics. Jason began actively job hunting, spending hours updating his resume and applying for positions. He even arranged for a neighbor to watch the kids while he attended an interview at a private school looking for a mid-year replacement teacher. More surprisingly, my mother emerged from her room on Friday morning with a changed demeanor. She was quiet but composed as she placed her signed rental agreement on the kitchen counter. I spoke with your Aunt Carol, she explained without meeting my eyes. She helped me see some things more clearly. I don't agree with how you've handled this, but I understand why you felt pushed to this point. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was an acknowledgement, the first real one in months. Thank you, I said simply. I think this will be better for all of us in the long run. She nodded stiffly. Carol also mentioned they're looking for administrative help at her dental office. I have an interview on Monday. The revelation stunned me. After months of excuses and, below my qualifications, dismissals, she had arranged an interview without prompting. The power of actual consequences was apparently quite motivating. Over the weekend, a remarkable transformation began. Jason and the children spent Saturday cleaning their rooms and common areas without being asked. My mother started sorting through her belongings, organizing what she would keep in her now officially rented space. Most tellingly, they both began treating me differently, with a caution that bordered on respect. They asked before using shared items, kept noise to a minimum during my work calls, and even consulted me about dinner plans instead of assuming I would provide or participate. It was as if the formal agreements had redefined our relationships in a way that months of conversations could not. By establishing clear boundaries with actual consequences, I had changed the fundamental dynamic from entitled dependence to mutual respect. The following week brought even more progress. Jason secured a teaching position starting immediately, commanding a higher salary than his previous job due to the urgent mid-year need. My mother not only got the administrative position at my aunt's dental office but seemed genuinely pleased about returning to the workforce. It feels good to have purpose again, she admitted during a surprisingly civil dinner conversation. I didn't realize how much I missed working until I started. As they began receiving paychecks, they both honored their rental agreements without complaint. The atmosphere in the house gradually shifted from hostile to cordial, and eventually to something approaching comfortable, though notably different from before. I had reclaimed my home, my finances, and my peace of mind. But perhaps most importantly, I had reclaimed my self-respect. No longer the family doormat, I had established myself as someone whose boundaries deserved recognition. It wasn't the family relationship I had once envisioned, but it was sustainable. And in time, perhaps it might even grow into something stronger than before, built on mutual respect rather than obligation and entitlement. 1 year after the dramatic confrontation that changed everything, I sat on my back patio enjoying the warm summer evening. The sound of children's laughter drifted from the basement, where Emma and Tyler were engrossed in a video game. From the kitchen came the clinking of dishes as my mother prepared dinner, a meal she had purchased with her own money, as was now our established routine. So much had changed in 12 months. What had begun as a desperate measure to reclaim my sanity had transformed into a functioning, even thriving household, albeit one structured very differently than before. My mother had not only kept her administrative job at my aunt's dental office, but had been promoted to office manager within 6 months. The regular income and professional recognition had restored her confidence and independence. She paid her rent promptly each month and had even started contributing to a retirement account. Jason had flourished in his new teaching position, eventually being offered a department head role for the upcoming school year. The divorce had finalized with more equitable terms than he'd initially feared, and he'd established a stable co-parenting routine with his ex-wife. His children spent weekdays with us and alternate weekends with their mother, providing everyone with predictable schedules. Most importantly, our family relationships had healed, not to their previous state of entitlement and resentment, but to something healthier. The formal rental agreements had initially felt cold and transactional, but they had established clear expectations that removed the guesswork and emotional manipulation from our interactions. Paradoxically, having business-like boundaries had allowed our personal relationships to improve. "Dinner's ready," my mother called from the kitchen, interrupting my reflections. As we gathered around the table, Jason, the kids, my mother, and me, I was struck by how normal it felt now. We shared stories about our days, laughed at Tyler's school anecdotes, and discussed weekend plans with the easy rhythm of a functional family. After dinner, as Jason took the children upstairs for their bedtime routine, my mother lingered at the table, an unusually contemplative expression on her face. "I've been thinking about something," she began hesitantly. "It's been exactly a year since everything changed." I nodded, surprised she had tracked the anniversary. "I was so angry with you," she continued. "I thought you were being cruel and selfish. But looking back now, I can see you actually saved us all." "I wasn't trying to save anyone," I admitted. "I was just trying to survive." "That's just it," she replied. "We weren't letting you survive. We were drowning you while expecting you to keep us afloat." She reached across the table and placed her hand over mine, a gesture of affection that had become rare between us. "I'm sorry, Ryan. Truly sorry for how we treated you." The apology, a year in coming, felt like the final piece falling into place. "Thank you," I said simply. "That means a lot. I've learned so much this year." She continued. "About independence, respect, boundaries. Things I should have known already at my age." She smiled ruefully. "Things I should have taught you, instead of the other way around." We talked late into the evening, having the honest conversation we should have had a year earlier. She acknowledged how she had taken advantage of my generosity, how the temporary arrangement had become convenient, and how she had allowed herself to slip into entitled dependency. "The strangest part," she confessed, "is that I'm happier now than I was then. Having my own income, my own responsibilities, it's given me back my dignity." The conversation with my mother crystallized the lessons I had learned through this difficult journey. First, that helping others should never come at the cost of your own well-being. My intention to support my family had been noble, but by sacrificing my boundaries, finances, and mental health, I had enabled unhealthy dependency rather than genuine growth. Second, that clear boundaries are essential to healthy relationships, especially with family. The cultural expectation that family members should give endlessly without limits or conditions had nearly destroyed both my finances and our relationships. Establishing explicit expectations had actually strengthened our family bonds by removing resentment and unclear assumptions. Third, that financial entanglements with family require extra caution and clarity. What had begun as temporary assistance had morphed into permanent expectation because I hadn't established clear timelines and conditions from the beginning. Fourth, that genuine help sometimes means allowing others to face consequences. By shielding my family from financial reality for months, I had delayed their necessary journey towards self-sufficiency. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is stop enabling destructive patterns. Finally, I learned that standing up for yourself doesn't mean abandoning those you love. By reclaiming my boundaries while still offering a path forward, I had found a middle ground between doormat and deserter. The experience had also transformed me personally. I had become more assertive at work, resulting in a promotion and substantial raise. I had developed greater confidence in expressing my needs in all relationships. And I had learned to recognize the difference between genuine generosity and self-destructive people-pleasing. My financial situation had stabilized as well. With my family now contributing their fair share, I had rebuilt my emergency fund and resumed saving for the future. The unconventional property arrangement had actually proved beneficial, providing tax advantages I hadn't anticipated. In the months that followed our anniversary conversation, our family continued to evolve. Jason eventually found an apartment closer to his school and moved out with the children, though they still visited regularly. My mother remained. Our landlord-tenant arrangement transforming into a more traditional roommate situation as her financial independence grew. The house that had once felt like a prison became a home again, not the solitary sanctuary I had originally purchased, but a shared space built on mutual respect rather than obligation. Sometimes I reflect on how differently things might have turned out had I not taken that drastic action a year ago. Had I continued as the family ATM, resentment would likely have poisoned our relationships beyond repair. My career might have collapsed under the strain of constant disruption. My finances would certainly have been devastated. And my family members might never have reclaimed their independence and dignity. What had seemed like a harsh business decision had ultimately been an act of love, for them and for myself. If you're watching this and struggling with similar family dynamics, remember that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential for healthy relationships. Financial support without accountability rarely helps anyone in the long run. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for those you love is to stop enabling destructive patterns. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? How did you handle it, and what was the outcome? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life lessons about family, finances, and finding balance. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, true family supports your growth, not just your giving.